Let's start with a question most people never ask: how strong are your hands right now? You might think it doesn't matter, but your grip is not just a measure of hand strength. It's a window into your nervous system, your hormones, your emotional regulation, and even your lifespan. Research across neuroscience, endocrinology, and physical training confirms that grip strength is one of the most accurate predictors of physical and mental health. And what most people don't realize is this hand strength can be radically improved in just 12 hours if you follow a specific set of neuromechanical protocols that tap directly into how your brain controls force production. The hand is incredibly dense in sensory receptors. It's filled with mechanoreceptors, stretch receptors, pressure sensors, all of which send powerful feedback loops to the brain, especially the motor cortex and cerebellum. When you intentionally activate these pathways through resistance, friction, and dynamic load, you stimulate cortical remapping. That means your brain updates its strength output based on new information, often in hours, not days or weeks. This isn't just about the hand, it's about training your brain through your hand. And in doing so, you strengthen your entire neuromuscular system, enhance cognitive sharpness, improve hormonal balance, and boost endurance. But let's take this deeper. The reason hand strength is such a game changer lies in what it controls under the surface. Strong grip activates the sympathetic nervous system when needed, giving you bursts of energy, aggression, and focus. But it also regulates the parasympathetic response during recovery. A trained grip sends calming signals to your vagus nerve, reducing anxiety and cortisol. This dual power allows you to shift between high, alert performance and deep recovery without the crash in between. In other words, grip strength doesn't just build your body, it teaches your nervous system to operate at maximum efficiency. Now consider this: hand strength is directly tied to testosterone and dopamine. The moment you apply resistance through your fingers and forearms, your brain responds by releasing neurochemicals that elevate drive, motivation, and mood. These chemicals create a feedback loop. You squeeze, you get stronger, and your brain rewards you with motivation to squeeze again. This is the foundation of neuroplastic change: effort followed by reward, amplified through repetition. With the right protocol, you can build this loop in just 12 hours. Especially if you train across several short sessions that spike neural activation and then allow for consolidation during rest. The beauty of this approach is in its simplicity. You don't need a gym, fancy equipment, or hours of free time. What you need is deliberate microloading, using friction-based tools like towels, thick bars, or grip trainers. In short, intense bursts throughout the day. You can train your grip while walking, while thinking, even during breaks. What matters is the frequency and quality of the activation. You want force variability, changing the angle, pressure, and duration to keep your brain guessing and adapting. Every session becomes a neurological workout, not just a muscular one. Let's not forget another critical factor: inflammation and longevity. Strong hands are a sign of low systemic inflammation. Why? Because chronic inflammation impairs neuromuscular signaling, reduces tendon resilience, and weakens your grip. But when you train your hands, you increase blood flow, nitric oxide production, and lymphatic drainage, flushing out waste and increasing tissue recovery. This directly supports joint health, immune balance, and even sleep quality. Studies show that people with strong grips tend to sleep better, recover faster, and handle stress more efficiently, all because their nervous system is better tuned. Now, imagine where you could be 12 hours from now, not in some vague future. I'm talking about today. You wake up, apply specific grip protocols in 3 short rounds. You do it again in the afternoon. You finish with one more micro session before bed. That's it. And in those 12 hours, you've already started reprogramming your brain to control your body more powerfully, more precisely, and with more endurance than before. You've shifted your baseline strength, you've reduced stress, you've boosted your hormones, all by using the most underestimated tool of the body, your hands. This is how you take control of your biology in real time. No hype, no shortcuts. Just raw science, properly applied, your hand strength is not just physical, it is neurological proof of your capacity to adapt. And when you train it deliberately, you unlock control over every other system in your body. The next 12 hours are yours. Make every grip count. Your hand is not just a tool for grabbing things, it is a highly sensitive extension of your brain. Every time you pick something up, squeeze, pull, or even open your fingers, your brain is sending finely tuned electrical signals down through your spinal cord, through your peripheral nerves, and into the dense web of muscles in your forearm and hand. But the direction of communication doesn't only go one way. The moment your fingers touch something or apply pressure, your hand sends an enormous amount of sensory data back to your brain, telling it about weight, texture, tension, balance, and resistance. This feedback loop is so important that a massive portion of your brain's motor cortex is actually dedicated to controlling the fingers and hands. It's one of the most heavily represented regions on the motor homunculus, meaning your brain prioritizes hand control more than it does your legs, torso, or even your face. This is where grip strength becomes more than just about muscles. It becomes a window into your neural efficiency. A weak grip is often a sign of low neural drive, poor motor recruitment, or lack of activation in the cortical regions responsible for voluntary force. In contrast, when you train your grip in short, focused sessions, you're not just building muscle in your hand, you are literally strengthening the communication lines between your brain and your body. Grip training activates both voluntary and reflexive circuits in the brain. When you apply pressure through your fingertips or your palm, the brain doesn't just light up the primary motor cortex. It also recruits support from the basal ganglia, cerebellum, and prefrontal cortex, systems responsible for timing, coordination, and even focus. This is why after intense grip training, many people feel not just physically stronger, but more mentally alert. It's not a coincidence. Your hands, when trained properly, become a direct key to enhancing your central nervous system. And this goes even further. When you grip something hard like a barbell, towel, or grip trainer, you're forcing your brain to fire motor units at a higher frequency. That means more neurons are recruited, more muscle fibers are activated, and more force is generated in less time. Over repeated sessions, this becomes an adaptation. The brain rewires its motor pathways to make grip strength more efficient and responsive. This is called neural potentiation, and it means your brain becomes better at sending fast, strong signals to your muscles with less effort. This is one of the major reasons hand strength can improve rapidly, even within 12 hours, because the adaptation happens neurologically before it happens structurally. You feel stronger before your muscles even have time to grow, because your brain has unlocked greater access to the strength that already existed in your system but was underutilized. Grip strength is not isolated. It integrates with posture, shoulder stability, core tension, and even breathing rhythm. When you train your grip, the whole body begins to respond. The brain sees it as a signal to organize, stabilize, and strengthen the rest of the body around the axis of the hand. When we talk about increasing hand strength, we often imagine building thicker forearm muscles or squeezing a grip trainer until failure. But the real transformation doesn't start in the muscles. It begins in the wiring of your nervous system. What controls the force of your grip isn't the size of your hands, but the speed and precision of communication between your brain and your muscles. This is what's referred to as neuromuscular wiring, and upgrading it is the fastest way to generate more power, better endurance, and greater control, all within hours. Inside every muscle is a network of motor units. Each motor unit is a bundle of muscle fibers controlled by a single motor neuron. When your brain decides to apply force, it sends a signal through these neurons, activating motor units in a sequence, usually starting with low threshold, slow twitch fibers and escalating to high threshold, fast twitch fibers when more strength is needed. The more efficient your neuromuscular wiring, the more of these motor units your brain can activate, and the faster it can do it. That's the secret to building explosive grip strength without waiting weeks or months. Most people only access a small portion of their motor units because their nervous system hasn't been trained to fire them rapidly or in high numbers. But when you use grip-specific protocols that increase neural drive, like heavy isometric holds, high friction squeezing, or time under tension drills, you're training your nervous system to recruit more motor units on command. That's not just a strength increase, it's a neurological unlock. Even better, these adaptations don't require long sessions. Short, high-intensity bursts of grip activation stimulate synaptic potentiation, a process where the connections between neurons become stronger and more sensitive. With the right dose of intensity, rest, and repetition, your nervous system begins to rewire itself in real time. The motor neurons involved in grip start firing faster and more synchronously, reducing what's known as neural noise and increasing the signal-to-noise ratio in your system. This leads to crisper, more forceful hand contractions even after a few training rounds. But there's more. As your nervous system adapts, your proprioception, the body's ability to sense its own position in space improves as well. This gives your hands the ability to not only generate more force, but to fine-tune it with greater sensitivity and precision. It's the reason elite athletes have strong yet controlled grip strength. They're not just powerful, they're neurologically efficient. This efficiency cascades through the body. When you grip harder and more effectively, your shoulders stabilize, your core locks in, and your entire kinetic chain becomes more integrated. In real-world terms, that means your grip strength can improve not just your ability to lift, hold, or carry, but also how you move, breathe, and recover. With just 12 hours of structured grip work, you can start building this neuromuscular upgrade, one that impacts every movement, every system, and every aspect of how your body performs under pressure. Most people believe that building grip strength is simply about increasing resistance, lifting heavier weights, squeezing tougher tools, or doing more repetitions. While resistance does play a role, it's only part of the story. If you're relying solely on traditional resistance, you're missing out on a far more effective and faster method, friction-based training. This form of grip activation doesn't just challenge the muscles, it targets the skin, the sensory nerves, and the fine motor control systems in your brain. Friction training uses textures, irregular surfaces, and variable resistance to create micro adjustments in your hand and finger positioning. These micro adjustments stimulate thousands of sensory receptors that standard resistance cannot reach. This constant engagement of the nervous system causes an intense feedback loop between skin, muscles, tendons, and the brain that leads to accelerated adaptation. Unlike smooth resistance, friction is unpredictable. That unpredictability forces the brain to stay highly alert and continuously rewire motor pathways to stabilize the grip. This neural engagement is what causes such rapid improvements. In friction-based protocols, your hands are not just gripping, they're adapting in real time, firing more neurons, correcting tiny imbalances, and activating deeper stabilizer muscles that rarely get trained with traditional resistance methods. A towel pull, for instance, where you grip and twist a towel soaked with weight or water, generates uneven resistance and inconsistent tension. Your fingers must coordinate with your wrist, your forearm, and your entire arm chain to maintain control. That's full spectrum motor control, and it's something that dumbbells alone cannot teach you. What makes friction training so powerful in the 12-hour model is that it doesn't require long durations. Because the nervous system responds to novelty, even short rounds of friction exposure cause significant neural stimulation. When you expose your hands to varied friction multiple times throughout the day, your brain reads this as a high priority adaptation signal. It sends more blood to the area, releases neurotransmitters, and begins to build new motor memory. Over time, and sometimes within hours, this results in faster reaction times, stronger grip, and more controlled force output. Another key element of friction training is its effect on grip endurance. Most resistance training focuses on maximum contraction for short bursts, but friction demands sustained engagement. You're not just contracting, you're adjusting, fine-tuning, recalibrating. That type of continuous neural engagement builds stamina, not just in the muscle fibers, but in the nervous system's ability to maintain effort. It leads to what's known as motor resilience, the ability to apply force with consistency under chaotic conditions. This has a massive carryover to daily life, athletic performance, and injury prevention. Friction training also enhances hand dexterity and tactile awareness. You begin to notice how small adjustments in finger angle or wrist rotation change the output of your grip. Your body becomes more intelligent. You no longer rely on brute force. You gain control. This intelligence is what accelerates progress within a 12-hour protocol. You're not just stronger, you're smarter, faster, and more responsive through your grip. The idea that your strength can noticeably improve in just 12 hours may sound exaggerated until you understand how your nervous system actually works. The truth is your brain is capable of rapid adaptation, especially when you target it during its most neuroplastic windows, the moments when it's most ready to rewire and respond. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change, adapt, and build new neural pathways in response to stimulation. What many don't realize is that this plasticity is not constant throughout the day. It has peaks and valleys governed by circadian rhythm, neurotransmitter cycles, and metabolic activity. When you engage in a deliberate grip training protocol timed to match these peaks, you can create powerful neurological shifts in strength, coordination, and muscle activation, often within a single day. The first window opens shortly after waking. In the first 90 minutes of the day, your brain experiences a natural surge in cortisol, not the stress hormone in its destructive sense, but the mobilizing version that helps you focus and engage with your environment. During this period, the motor cortex is highly responsive and synaptic connections are easier to strengthen. This is when you want to apply your first round of grip training, short, intense, and controlled. The goal is not to exhaust, but to activate. You prime the nervous system, letting the brain know that grip strength is now a priority adaptation. The second critical window opens in the afternoon, typically between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., when dopamine levels rise again and the body has reached a rhythm of readiness. If you follow up with a second session here, again, using friction or isometric holds, you deepen the motor learning that started in the morning. This repetition across windows is what locks in neuroplastic change. It's not just training the muscle, it's reinforcing a neural blueprint of strength. Then comes the most underrated window of all, before sleep. While you're sleeping, your brain consolidates motor learning, strengthens synaptic connections, and prunes away inefficiencies. If you stimulate your grip one final time, just a few minutes of focused activation before bed, you leave behind a neural tag that tells your brain what to consolidate overnight. This is critical. Your strength doesn't improve during training, it improves between training and especially during sleep. That final session becomes the anchor for the gains made earlier in the day. But there's a deeper layer. Every time you grip with intensity, you're also sending signals through your spinal cord, engaging motor neurons, and affecting posture and core engagement. These signals echo through your system, activating pathways that aren't just local to your hand. That's why grip training, timed correctly, leads to improvements not only in hand strength, but also in shoulder stability, forearm coordination, and even gait patterns. It becomes a full-body neurological upgrade. This 12-hour strategy then isn't about working harder. It's about working in sync with your brain's natural rhythm. You're capitalizing on when the nervous system is most ready to change, building a strength response that is both fast and deeply integrated. Grip strength is more than just a measure of how tightly you can squeeze an object. It's a physiological signal that reflects the current state of your stress regulation system, particularly the balance of your cortisol levels. Cortisol is widely known as the stress hormone, but its purpose is far more complex and essential than simply reacting to pressure. It helps regulate metabolism, immune responses, blood sugar, and crucially, your level of alertness and energy throughout the day. When you train your grip deliberately, especially with protocols that include breath control and isometric tension, You engage with this hormone on a direct, measurable level. Studies have shown that individuals with higher grip strength consistently display more stable cortisol patterns, meaning they spike cortisol appropriately in the morning and allow it to taper off as the day progresses. In contrast, those with weak grip strength often show disrupted cortisol curves, blunted or chronically elevated levels that lead to fatigue, anxiety, poor sleep, and even cognitive decline. What this reveals is that your grip strength acts almost like a barometer for how well your body is managing internal and external stress. The reason this connection exists is due to the autonomic nervous system, the system responsible for unconscious processes like heart rate, digestion, and hormone secretion. Grip training activates the sympathetic nervous system temporarily, causing a rise in cortisol and alertness, similar to what happens during a workout. But here's where the magic happens. When paired with controlled breathing and intentional recovery periods, the nervous system quickly shifts gears into the parasympathetic mode, encouraging the body to lower cortisol, stabilize the heart rate, and promote relaxation. That rapid switch is what trains your system to handle stress more effectively in real life. You're literally building a faster and more flexible cortisol regulation loop every time you go through the cycle of grip exertion and conscious recovery. Additionally, grip strength is linked to your ability to manage emotional resilience. When cortisol levels remain chronically high, the prefrontal cortex, your brain's decision-making center, begins to lose its edge. You become more reactive, less focused, and more emotionally volatile. But when grip training is used as a tool to lower and balance cortisol, the prefrontal cortex regains control, allowing you to make better decisions, resist impulsivity, and stay composed under pressure. Over time, this practice rewires your entire stress response system, giving you a more grounded baseline of energy and emotional stability. Even more fascinating is how consistent grip training lowers inflammatory markers associated with cortisol dysregulation, such as CRP and IL-6, meaning your immune system benefits too. With just a few structured grip sessions per day, particularly during high stress periods, you not only gain physical strength, but you also train your body to approach stress from a position of control, not chaos. Grip becomes more than strength. It becomes a neurological therapy for stress mastery. There is a neurological truth that often goes unnoticed. Strength is not just physical, it's identity-based. The way you grip something tells your brain something deeper than just effort. It tells your system what kind of person you are becoming. A weak grip sends subtle feedback to your nervous system, reinforcing a sense of fragility, passivity, and low control. But the moment you begin deliberately activating your grip, applying force with intention and control, something shifts, not just in your body, but in your self-perception. The mind starts to register power differently. You begin to reframe yourself from someone who reacts to stress and physical demands to someone who initiates action, controls their biology, and shapes their own limits. This feedback loop between brain, body, and belief creates a radical shift in performance, not because your muscles suddenly grew overnight, but because your nervous system updated your default behavior. When you begin grip training with the right protocols, especially in short but intense intervals over a 12-hour period, you awaken dormant neural pathways. Many people walk around with only 30-40% of their potential strength activated because their brain hasn't learned to trust their musculature. Your body won't give you access to full strength until your nervous system believes it's safe to do so. And that belief is built by consistent, strategic exposure. As you train, as you overcome friction, fatigue, and tension, your brain records it. And in doing so, it grants you more strength, not by adding new muscle immediately, but by unlocking access to the strength you already have. This is how you go from weak to unstoppable, by teaching your system to stop limiting itself. But even more critical is how this new grip-based strength affects the rest of your body and life. Stronger hands mean more stable wrists, more responsive elbows, and more powerful shoulders. Posture improves, breathing stabilizes, endurance increases. And because grip training activates so many areas of the brain, from the motor cortex to the cerebellum, basal ganglia, and even the insula, you also develop more cognitive clarity, faster decision-making, and deeper body awareness. You start to feel more capable, more engaged, more on. The change is not only mechanical, it's psychological. Each grip session becomes a declaration of control, of presence, of forward momentum. And in 12 hours, with just a few rounds of focused friction training, isometric holds, and neurological priming, the momentum begins to compound. This isn't hype, it's the biology of belief, triggered by action, reinforced by the nervous system. You're not waiting to become strong, you're becoming strong the moment you begin. That's how the system works. It doesn't wait for a perfect body or a gym. It adapts immediately to your intention and your consistency. And once you begin, you create a loop where strength is no longer a future goal. It's a current identity being formed with every rep, every breath, every grip. The power to transform your strength, your stress response, and your entire neurological identity lies not in some distant future. It's in your hands. Right now, what we've uncovered today is not just a method for improving grip strength in 12 hours. It's a complete reset of how your brain and body communicate. Your hands are the interface between thought and action, between weakness and control, between hesitation and power. By understanding how grip activates your nervous system, enhances neuroplasticity, balances cortisol, and unlocks unused muscular and emotional potential, you've been given more than just a training tool. You've been handed a neurological key. This isn't about squeezing harder. It's about training smarter. It's about aligning with the natural rhythms of your biology and harnessing moments of heightened brain receptivity to create lasting adaptation. And when you combine grip training with intention, timing, and precision, you don't just get stronger. You reprogram how your entire system performs. Every grip, every pulse of force, every friction-based repetition becomes a vote for the stronger, more focused, more resilient version of you. You don't need months to feel the change. You need 12 hours of commitment to the right process. In those hours, you can reclaim the strength you thought was lost. You can sharpen the mind you thought was dulled. You can shift from stress, reactive, to performance, driven. Grip is the beginning, and through it, everything else aligns. This is your starting point. This is your system reboot. Now, take control and let your grip become the signal that you're ready for more.